Welcome to the final Mishnah in chapter 5, Mishnah 8 of Mishnah Sukkah, where we're about to embark on an extraordinary journey that's going to completely change the way you understand this Mishnah. Brace yourself for a mind-blowing revelation as we uncover the hidden wisdom that will challenge and transform the way you understand anything bad that happens in the world. Get ready for a video that will push the boundaries of your own beliefs and broaden your horizons and give you a fresh new perspective that will empower you to overcome any obstacle and any problem. Are you prepared to have your mind absolutely blown? So let's dive straight into the amazing words of this incredible Mishnah. One day fell out between them, between Shabbos and Yomtov. Mishna shizmanoi kavua, the group whose time was fixed for that week, hoya noitel eser, it would take 10 loaves of bread of the lechem haponim. V'hamis akev, and the group that stayed back, noitel shtayim, would take 2. So the group that was coming in was usually take its 10 loaves of bread, and the group staying back over Shabbos would take 2. So for example, if the falls out on a Monday, then the Kohanim would have the option to come on a Sunday. However, in this scenario, they arrived early on Erev Shabbos on a Friday instead. They didn't turn up on Sunday. They came even earlier. Or the other situation is where the last day of Yom Tov would fall out on a Thursday. The Kohanim would be able to go home on Erev Shabbos on a Friday. However, in this case, they chose to stay back and remain for Shabbos instead. So in either of these cases, all the groups that stayed back would only get 2 loaves of showbread, while the group whose time was fixed for that week would take 10 loaves of the lechem haponim, of the showbread. And in the other days of the year, hanichnos noitel shesh, the group that enters for that week takes 6. V'hayotzei noitel shesh, and the group that is leaving takes 6 loaves of the showbread. Every Shabbos they would change over. Rabbi Yehuda argues, hanichnos noitel sheva, the group that enters takes 7. V'hayotzei noitel chamesh, and the group that is leaving after their week of service takes 5. Rabbi Yehuda argues, he's saying that they take an extra 2, so they're getting 7 instead of 5. They're getting extra 2 over the other group because that's in as a reward for shutting the doors that the leaving group opened up that morning. The group that's entering would always distribute the showbread, the lechem haponim, in the north part of the Ezras Kohanim, and the group that was leaving would distribute their bread in the south. Bilga would always distribute the showbread to their members of their group in the south, but tabata kavua, ring kavua, was locked, and its window to get access to the shechting knives was always blocked. Salek Masechta Sukkah. We have completed Masechta Sukkah. And if we go into the Bar Tanura to have a deeper understanding of what's going on over here, of why Bilga was penalized, the Kansura Rabbanan Mishum Meisa Shaya, the rabbis penalized this group because of a story that happened, Sheisha Achas Mishmeres Bilga, that one woman from the family, from the group of Bilga, or Miriam bas Bilga Shema, and Miriam, the daughter of Bilga, was her name. Nishtadma, she became an apostate. She left Yiddishkeit. Nisas l'sarjat echad, she married to one senior ranking officer, Mimalcha Yevonim, from the Greek kings. Shenichnasu Yevonim laheichal, and when the Greeks entered the heichal, she went and banged with the sandal al gabi hamizbech, on top of the altar. For Amr, and she said, Lucas, Lucas. She called out, Lucas, Lucas. Pirush ze'ev, ze'ev b'loshin Yevani. This means wolf, wolf in the Greek language, just like a wolf eats up sheep for food, so too the Mizbeach would consume the sheep that we would offer up on the Mizbeach as a korban, as a sacrifice. And she cried out, Ad Maseh ato mechalam amoyinam shel Yisrael, until how long will you destroy the money of Israel? And you're not standing up for them at the time of their stress, when the Yidden are in trouble. Where are you, Hashem? When the rabbis heard this, Kavur es tabata, they fixed her ring. V'sasma es chalona, they blocked her window to get access to the shechting knives. So the ring for shechting was permanently locked, and the windows to get the knives was permanently locked. Shel kol mishmarakula, of the whole group, all of it. It was very embarrassing because they would have to go elsewhere to borrow someone else's knives because they couldn't get access to their own, and they'd have to use someone else's shechting ring to put the animal in, to actually lock the animal in to be shechted. Ki amru, the rabbis said, Im loy sheshama me'aviv, she didn't hear this from her father, that he shamed the Rebbe, he looked disrespectfully, he spoke disrespectfully about the service in the temple. Loy amrakan, she wouldn't have never said such a thing, she wouldn't have spoken so disrespectfully to the Mizbach of Ishvil. Avia, and because of her father, Kol HaMishpacha, the whole family was penalized, was fined. That woe to the wicked and woe to his neighbor. Miriam Bas Bilga was hanging around people that her neighbors were not so good, and she picked up the disrespect they had for the service in the Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, that's what caused her to say what she said and do what she did. Tov l'tzadik v'tov l'shchena. Conversely, good is for the tzaddik and good for the neighbor when you're in the company of good people that will rub off onto you that you are the good neighbor to those good people. Salk Masechta Sukkah. We have completed the Masechta of Sukkah. Now, we need to understand over here what's going on as the Lubavitcher Rebbe completely turns what's going on around over here. The Rebbe, in an amazing Sikha, in the year Tovshin Lamed Hay 1974, Vov Tishrei, in commemoration for the yortzeit of his mother, Rebbetzin Chana, who herself was a very big tzedekis. The Rebbe said there in that Sikha, we hold in this Mishnah Miriam Bas Bilga accountable for her actions because she left Yiddishkeit. She married a senior officer that was a big anti-Semite who overthrew the temple. While these were very, very serious offenses, what does the Mishnah hold her really accountable for? Because she took off a shoe and banged on the altar. And that's the primary focus of her accountability for what she did wrong. Because she called out Lucas, why are you destroying Yiddish money and banging on the altar? The whole group of Bilga was penalized. But the Rebbe turns this around. He says, but on the contrary, when push came to shove, in spite of what she did, in spite of the fact of marrying a non-Jewish Greek officer who was coming to overthrow the Beis Hamikdash, he overthrew Jerusalem, he overthrew the Beis Hamikdash, he overthrew the Mizbeach, and they even offered up Rachmana litzlan, a chazer, a pig on the altar. Despite all these things, when push came to shove, she called out, Lucas, she was crying and screaming, why are you destroying Yiddish money that they spent on the Karbonis, and you don't answer the Jewish people in the times of their distress? Despite of all her shortcomings, her soul was in complete tact and whole and one. When she saw her brothers in trouble, she cried out, which shows how great she is. No matter how low she went, her connection to Yiddishkeit was still in full tact. When she called out Lucas to cry for Klal Yisrael, when the Rebbe was repeating this Sikha to Klal Yisrael, he himself cried, because obviously no one wants the Jewish people to suffer, just like Miriam Bas Bilga did not want the Jewish people to suffer, and the Rebbe was totally in sync with her at the time and felt that emotion too.
Was hat ihr gehabt, für was ist der Mizbeach nicht Medien auf ein Jid? Und da sagt mir, was ein jüdisch Kind ist, nicht sagt, der sagt, was hat Milchome gehalten mit ihnen und hat angenommen Jerusalem, hat angenommen der Beis Hamikdash, angenommen den Mizbeach. Und sie geht mit ihm mit als ein Samen, was ein Scheich ist. Schaut danach, aber sie der Zett, was tut sich mit der zweiten Nieden, schreit sie, Lukus, Lukus, für was hältst du nicht Nieden?
Therefore, we have a powerful lesson that we can learn from this story to apply in our lives today. Comes along this mission, tells us that we need to apply a limud schus to other people just like we are to Miriam bas Bilga. That comes along a Jew, he may not be so observant in his Yiddishkeit and he doesn't feel anything for Yiddishkeit. We need to speak dvarim hayotzim min halev, words that come out of the heart, nichnas el halev, they'll enter into the heart, and we'll take them out of their bad surroundings with their bad neighbors, so to speak, and then pull them in to become the good neighbor of ours. But it depends on you and it depends on me. If we speak words that come out of the heart, and we become, so to speak, that we'll be the tov l'tzadik v'tov l'shchena, we'll be the tzadik, and we'll make them our neighbor. They'll become our neighbor through us living a positive Jewish example of Torah and mitzvahs. When we meet somebody through Hashgacha Pratis, then it's our opportunity to help them turn their lives around and re-identify with Yiddishkeit. And if we're in that situation, Hashem's telling us we have the ability to actually reach out and touch their heart and touch their soul if we speak words of sincerity. And then we'll turn his life in a good way to become our neighbor and live a life full of Torah and mitzvahs just like us. So just summarizing this Mishnah, we learnt about the distribution of the showbread. And when there's a day between Shabbos and Yomtov, we learn that the group that stays back takes 2 loaves and the group that's coming in to serve takes 10 loaves. But throughout the rest of the year, each group takes 6 loaves each. Rabbi Yehuda argues, he says, no, the group coming in takes 7 and the group that are leaving take 5 on a regular Shabbos. Then we talked about the group coming in would always distribute their bread in the north because that was the main place. And since they're entering into the service for that week, and that's the main place in the north part of the Ezras Kohanim, in the north part of the altar, the Mizbach, that's where they would distribute the showbread. The group that were leaving would always distribute their bread in the south because that was the less important because they're already on their way out. The family of Bilga would always distribute the showbread in the south, and we also learned that the shechting ring for Bilga was always blocked, as well as the window access to the shechting knives. And then the Rebbe comes along and turns the understanding of Miriam bas Bilga completely 180, does a complete turnaround in our understanding of this Mishnah. We learned that despite Miriam bas Bilga's bad choices that she made, her inner core, the essence of her soul, was still connected to Klal Yisrael and still connected to Hashem. And we see this connection get revealed when push came to shove. At the end of the day, despite all the negative things she was involved in, when she saw how her fellow brethren, her fellow Jews were suffering with the overthrow of the temple and Jerusalem and the Mizbach, she cried out to Hashem, which showed her deep care and her deep love for her fellow Jew and her connection to Hashem. And she was the one that the Mishnah chose to learn Oy l'Rasha, Oy l'Shchenai, woe to the wicked, woe to his neighbor, Tov l'Tzadik, v'Tov l'Shchenai, good for the Tzadik and good for his neighbor. We learned that in the schus of Miriam bas Bilga. And you and I need to learn from this that we need to take people who are surrounded by bad neighbors, so to speak, and schlep them in to become our good neighbor by us becoming the tzaddik, by becoming the example of Yiddishkeit, and hence we will be an example for them to follow our good paths as well when we speak words that go out of the heart and enter into theirs. And we can do this by having genuine discussions and connection with them and bring them over in a loving way and a respectful way that they should be observant of Torah and mitzvahs too. Whoa, what a powerful message that we've learnt on this Mishnah from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, where he flips this Mishnah upside down in the way we understand it, and it challenges us to see the world in a whole new light, with a powerful lesson that you and I can apply in our lives. Before we come along to judge the likes of a Miriam bas Bilga, we need to start looking at a wider picture to see the good in everyone and everything. The Rebbe reminds us that despite Miriam bas Bilga's checkered past with all the bad things she did, her true essence shone through when she cried out to Hashem and asked him why he doesn't answer us at the time of our trouble. And therefore it's a powerful reminder that we need to cry out for each other when our friends are in trouble, and we also need to cry and bang on our own mizbeach, so to speak, and ask Hashem, why hasn't Mashiach yet come? So let's take this lesson to heart. Let's take the lead from Miriam bas Bilga and passionately cry out to Hashem to bring Mashiach, bring the Geula finally now. Who knows, maybe your heartfelt plea to Hashem might be the one that finally brings Mashiach